Hello and welcome to the Growth Reframe podcast brought to you by Scale Visible. Today, I'm very excited to have Ben on the podcast. We are talking about all things ads and new formats. And I wanted to give Ben a quick opportunity to introduce himself and tell us a little bit about his story and where he's at.
Thanks, Ewan. Yeah, excited to be here. Excited to kind of get into these conversations. So much to talk about, I'm sure. Anyone who knows me knows I've been in advertising for the last 15 plus years. My background is in performance marketing. I ran an agency that had Google and SEO, Google Ads and SEO for a while, and nowadays I've really honed in on exploring some of these new ad platforms such as Reddit ads and even recently ChatGPT ads. So I make my living on understanding how to turn attention into conversions. I do direct response advertising. And yeah, traditionally a Google Ads person who's now expanded his reach. A lot changing in the AI world that we're in the ad space too.
For sure, for sure. And I think that is kind of a great lead in to one of the first questions I had. Obviously, Reddit has been around for a very long time, but it's entered the zeitgeist in the last couple of years and been coming on strong from the organic side and now with AI visibility, the platforms to help our audience understand why Reddit? Why is this the platform that everyone's talking about, but everyone also struggles with? And why Reddit ads and why now?
I think ultimately there's two ways I would go with this. First of all, people trust people. You buy from brands and people you trust, and Reddit is a place where people now go to find out what their community is doing. It's a place where they go to ask questions. And when there's attention, there's opportunity. But why Reddit now versus it's been around for the last almost 20 years? It's developed so much as a platform. So let's think about this. It started off as a forum. Reddit has this history up until 2015 where it was just like this almost dark place of the web. Ever since then, when Steve came back and decided I want to really clean up this platform and leading up to them going public, they really changed their trajectory. They put a lot of moderator rules in place. They just developed it more as a platform itself. But why Reddit ads today is really they have invested all of their money invested all of their equity essentially into advertising as their primary revenue source. And because of that means they need to have an environment where brands can generate growth from Reddit. So over the last 2 to 3 years, they've accelerated their bot detection. They've really focused on building out ad tech products that allow you to market and bring in reviews and all these different functionalities. So it's at an interesting crossroad right now where you're at the intersection of two ways. One, opportunity. It's still a new developing platform. It has lower CPMs. There's less competition. People don't have it brands don't have it as figured out. But also, it's an ad tech that is developing. It's their primary revenue model, and they need this to work for their growth trajectory. So they're going to invest in it, and they're going to invest in brands.
Yeah, I think that's an interesting point you bring up about how that's really the only play for brands. We work on the organic side, which isn't really an established playbook, right? It's working on pioneering that. But on the paid side, oftentimes brands will come to us being like, we talk to the Reddit team and they're pushing us into the ads funnel. It feels like there was a point, I remember a couple of years ago, there was talk about maybe they were going to create a creator economy, and maybe it could have been like a TikTok scenario with these influencers and feel more like performance marketing. But that hasn't been the case. It really has been this ads platform. So there's very few options, it feels like, for brands. So that definitely resonates. I think one of the questions I often get is, do you think Reddit is a fit for my brand? And so based on that, are you seeing a particular avatar, or what types of brands are seeing success on Reddit right now from what you're seeing?
That's a great question. I do think it's for the adventurous. It's for the adventurous marketer. I don't think there's a lot of stigma around, is there a lot of brand safety? And for sure, if you are a billion-dollar corporation with very extreme standards around how your brand can be spoken of in your marketing practices. But for most small, medium enterprises, most growing brands that aren't so stringent, it's just a new playing field to try. What I've been seeing work, though, is brands or products that require consideration. since Reddit is really owning that middle of the funnel consideration phase with peer reviews and commentary and direction, if it's, for example, a science-backed product, or if it's choosing a service provider where people are going to get other people's opinions. If it's a consideration product that is not just like an impulse buy or a CPG buy, that's actually where we've been exploring the most. And I think there's some of the highest opportunity. I haven't been focusing on the CPG side, but I just think that if you are going to find the best mattress, you're going to go to Reddit and see what other people are saying. You're going to evaluate what peers are mentioning about their experience with the mattress. So we've been seeing it as beneficial for consideration-led products.
Yeah, that makes sense. And I know we often get this, like, oh, we tried Reddit ads that didn't work. I think we could share some anecdotes with me about some brands that have lost a lot of money. Like, where are people losing money, and where are the common mistakes that brands are making right now with Reddit?
Part of the problem is people who tried it 2+ years ago. So if you used it before their ad tech kind of came to where it is today, I have heard horror stories. And look, if you're just working with your Reddit ads rep, they're a salesperson, and there's nothing wrong with that. Their job, they obviously want you to be successful so they can continue to sell inventory. But they're going to give you directional cues and kind of put it on you as the marketer. And there's room for failure there. So I've seen brands who relied too heavily on Reddit's pixel. Reddit's pixel is not very good. Their conversion API and your own marketing attribution and tracking systems is necessary for you to understand what's working and what's not. But if you just launch a campaign and don't have the right tracking set up, I can see why it goes off the rails. I've seen the anecdote you're talking about as a brand spending $100,000 and they had the $5,000 customer acquisition cost. And that was really just because they tried something kind of out the gate and experimented, and they were okay with that, but it did not land. So needing that data is just super key.
That makes a lot of sense. And then there are also maybe some avatars where they're coming at it, they're trying to decide, should I do organic marketing or paid? How is what you're doing different than the organic side? Obviously, I can speak a little bit to that, but I'm curious, how you see it and how you pathfind and direct brands to one or the other. Maybe there's some sort of something they're trying to solve for, and you're like, oh, you shouldn't use us, or you should.
Yeah, ultimately, it's just a new channel, right? Yeah. It's a new platform for sure, but it still comes back to marketing fundamentals of paid media, right? Like organic versus paid, they're two different things. One, creating content to attract attention and then marketing to that attention versus going out there and creating demand and generating interest to then bring into your funnel. Peter doesn't necessarily rob from Paul, right? You can go out there and do a demand gen campaign and it actually works really well that you have content built out and then they can come find your content and engage with it. But from a paid side, it still comes back to that fundamentals. It's the same thing for Meta ads. It's the same thing for Google ads. Who are you trying to target? Who's your customer profile? What are you selling them and why should they go with you? Determining how you build hooks and creating the right creative for Reddit that's Reddit specific and attracts attention. Those are tactics, but ultimately figuring out who you're targeting and what you want to put in front of them and figuring out those unit economics of how that makes sense. If I can generate a customer for you, Ewan, for $500, is that profitable? Yes or no? That's as simple as it can be.
Yeah, 100%. I think we often see this when we're doing on the organic side. If there's negative sentiment or just understanding, if you don't understand how you're currently being positioned organically, like having that audit. I know you do it on the paid side. When you get started, we do it on the organic side. Oftentimes those things are complementary, but they're different. They're different enough. An organic content strategy is going to take time, and you're going to be like turning the Titanic a little bit if you have like negative sentiment. Ads is going to be more instant in terms of your testing, setting up, and get instant feedback at least. And I think that's where, for some brands, they really need to look at it holistically, and then something that's an and, not an or. And oftentimes even a different functional team, maybe internally in an organization, needs to think about this in their own discipline because it does impact. We see brands that negative Reddit sentiment is impacting their entire paid spend. And so we really want to at least have that conversation with a brand up front. Hey, there's a bunch of negativity out there. What do we want to do about that? And that will inform, I imagine, the paid side.
Just 100%.
Yeah. 100%. So
I can see it, like it's almost guaranteed that I can have the most effective ad. I can capture your attention. I can just demonstrate value. I can say capture your email and get you into our customer pipeline and all these great things. But there's a great chance you might just go Google the brand, or you might go search on Reddit exactly what other people are thinking. And if your sentiment is negative, like you just mentioned, it could kill the sale then. And then you pay the ad dollars and didn't have the negative sentiment. So there's definitely a correlation.
cool. Yeah, that's said. I think turning gears a little bit, I'm curious, more personally, like why did you start Scale Page? Obviously, you've been in the business for a while. Why this year, and like, what were you trying to fix, or what kind of gap did you see in the market?
Yeah, that's a great question. Why this? When I had an agency for about 9 years, now 43, that I exited in 2024, and I've been in the agency game in some form since 2011, so definitely not new to the space. I actually took a year focused on building up some of my marketing execution and fractional CMO and affiliate marketing. I focused on these specific things, and after taking a year off from the previous agency and coming back to start Scale Paid, I just felt like there's a gap missing in a lot of paid agencies where it's changing. Like you can't just be an ad specialist anymore. There's so much more important about understanding how to build an offer and how to build a funnel and understanding how to do VSL scripting. And there's this skill set that I had built up that I feel could really come to life in an agency format in creating funnels and running ads. And those are two very different skill sets that we bridge here at Scale Paid, that a lot of agencies don't have the capabilities to do across both. You might work with a creative agency and then work with an ad agency, right? So bringing two of those paths together for a certain a certain type of brand who is performance driven, who has product market fit, and has their own mature paid media or marketing team. Maybe they're not paid media, but at least a mature marketing team. They can lean on our expertise across funnels and ads, and I think that stands out. So I just felt we all know about Reddit and the last 2 to 3 years of Reddit in the space, and just growing exponentially ever since those data deals with Google, ever since it was quite abundant how it's been training and feeding into LLMs. With that attention, I feel like it's a perfect time to kind of jump into it.
Yeah, it's an interesting segue into this idea of like more on the agency positioning side. We're seeing a lot of bigger agencies on the organic side, in the SEO space. They're starting to offer GEO. And I imagine similarly, we're seeing the big paid agencies coming out with, we also do Reddit. What are you seeing the other agencies getting wrong, and why Ben and why Scale Paid relative to some of these like Me Too agencies?
Yeah. So we're staying small, we're staying lean, and we're focused on bringing on a certain number of brands, and we're performance driven, incentivized. So you're going to be, it's almost like the vision is almost like this consultative approach, where to get that in a large agency, you would need to have a wide variety of senior directors involved in this. So it's definitely cost efficient, and we're pretty confident we can kind of hit on some of these milestones. But in terms of Reddit ads specifically, like some of these other agencies who are trying it, what we've seen not really work is just testing out your meta creative on it. I don't want to make Reddit out to this big bad market platform that sometimes brands look at it as, but it is a different ecosystem. There is etiquette, and there's cadences, and there's moderators who have opinions on things. Now, when it's ads and not organic, you are in a curated experience, so it's not, you don't have to follow all the rules. But if your ad doesn't blend in with what that consumer is doing on that community, for example, if it's am I the asshole as like a community, right?
Yeah.
If you're on that and it's not a story-led ad, now that's a very specific thing, but maybe your product fits into something funny like that. But if you're not in the format that people are sharing their AMI, whatever it is.
Yeah.
But if you're not in that format, then you can kind of lose it there, and they're just going to glance over your product. So just trying to launch your creative from your other ad campaigns isn't quite going to cut it. You need to think a little bit more about blending into the audience.
Isn't that? I feel like that's just Reddit in general too. It's like such a specific thing, and it's almost like a revenge of the analog in the sense of we've seen like Meta and Insta, like the real TikTok. There's a certain kind of like format for those ads, attention grabbing, kind of like pattern interrupts. Reddit is very different. Reddit is, like you said it earlier, consideration, diving deep, text-based, like story-driven, like very different. And so right here, you're saying is like kind of need a specialist here. This is not a easily like you could port something on Meta to TikTok maybe. This is a different. This is like on a different continent in terms of paid spend.
100%. And I think it's something like 40% of Redditors aren't on Instagram.
Yeah.
That's it.
Wow.
They just consume different content. Like it's people, and don't get me wrong, Instagram and that can work great in its own world, but from advertising perspective, but it's just different and you need to approach it differently that way.
And perhaps these are users even that I think I read some studies that like are hard to reach. And I think we've seen that. It's like, wow, you're kind of reaching these people that are anti-marketing or using Reddit because it's not like TikTok. It's not this like this constant feed that's always updated. You can scroll forever. It's like this place where people are part of these communities and they check in daily and it's part of their habit. They're not engaging in content in the same way. So I think that's really cool. You mentioned, I think before the call about this founder cohort, like you're in the early innings here. What is that? And what is the hook there for anyone that's interested?
So we want to have brands that we feel like will be just as successful working with us, right? So we have an offer right now for 5 brands. We've already signed 2, so there's only 3 left. But basically, it's our offer of, like, do you want to explore Reddit? You're going to get to invest in us at like our lowest offer pretty much ever. I don't imagine going back to anything like this pricing ever in the future. But it's $1,500 a month in terms of a flat 3-month pilot. And we're just out there to show that we can generate growth with Reddit. So we want to find 5 curated brands who we're confident we can hit some milestones with together. And then, they'll, in return for the great pricing, they get access to me and hopefully we build some rapport and case studies. So that would be great.
Awesome. So who would you say is I know we talked this a little bit, like who should use Reddit? It sounds like everyone should probably consider it. And there's some consideration around the size. But like, who is the best fit for this? Like, who would you be like, give me 10 of these, like, was through the hoop?
That's a great question. I think there's 2 areas I'm really exploring in. One is on the kind of B2B SaaS. There's a lot of opportunity. I know the SaaS world itself has its own path forward right now, but there's a lot of opportunity to get in front of entrepreneurs, get in front of tech people, and generate that interest in that kind of B2B SaaS lead gen. So like driving that consideration right into a pipeline. And the other one is, I would say, I'm really interested in like science-backed solutions. We're talking one brand right now that's really interesting to me and might be joining the cohort, has credentials, has the research, that has content, and we can build a funnel that it can change some people's lives. So science-backed, in some ways, there's a lot of exploration in like wellness products. Reddit's not so stringent on some of these as other platforms. It exists. Can't be false claims and all that kind of stuff. But that's another lead gen / e-commerce play that we're looking for.
For sure. And just like to push you on that. Everyone says, oh, these are my ideal customers. But who have you turned down recently? What was why? And why did you do that?
That's a great question. We did come across a super niche, like it was just too small of a community to even to start with Reddit. I find it might not be the best platform if you haven't figured out like what it is. Can you convert a customer online? Like since there's this other variable of like marketing on Reddit that we're solving, if you haven't solved how to drive a customer who finds you on Google, or how to drive a customer who you've created a meta ad or a Google ad for, like it might not be your best first platform. I came across a brand recently that was like, I could spend my first 5K on Reddit. And I was like, I would focus on Google first, or even some cases Meta first. And then when you feel like you have a good product market fit, we could focus on Reddit as the expansion.
Yeah, and it also feels and what is market rate? What is the market rate for paid? Then come to Reddit to optimize further from there.
Yeah, exactly.
That makes sense. So like in terms of another thing you guys come across is like, what are your minimums? And what do you feel? And a big core philosophy for me is like fire bullets and cannonballs, which is a Jim Collins concept, but essentially it's find the target before you dump all your gunpowder, fire in range. However, there is like this prerequisite to that, which is you need a minimum amount. You need a minimum viable number of shots downrange to find the target. So what would you say to a brand about what is the minimum they should expect to find out if Reddit is worth it?
So I always like to bring this back to conversions and sales, right? I'll have a brand come to me and say, I have a $250 cost per acquisition. I want to acquire customers at $250. Okay, so what kind of budget do you need? In order to get like a statistical relevance to be able to optimize campaigns and scale out new opportunities, you need to have a certain number of purchases, right? And you're not going to find that perfect CPA out the gate. So you need some test budget. But even in a best case scenario, for example, 50 purchases at $250 a purchase, why is my math? It's like $12,500. Yeah. So we need like at least a certain amount. Now that's if you have a perfect funnel already converting at a 5% conversion rate that we know if we just plug in these ads, it's going to work, which typically what happens is that it requires some maturity. So the long answer is I typically say you want to start at least with $5,000 a month, but it really is dependent on how your product sells, how much traffic we're going to be generating for your niche, like what is the CPC level, and most importantly is like, can we drive enough sales? Now, brands get often scared at minimum spends to determine it. Oh, what if $10,000 doesn't work for me? What if you're not spending $10,000 all at once? It's an iterative process. You're spending $200 a day, $500 a day as you scale, and then you're seeing what's working, what's not working, and you're not continuing to spend on what's not working. But the more budget you have up front, the faster you learn. So while the minimum might be 5,000, some brands I do say should start at 15 to 20,000 because they have more of a mature wing, they have a higher CPA goal, and we need more data to be like, this is working or not working.
Yeah, it's someone's failing quickly is you can iterate obviously a lot faster. Yes. And that's been a key for us too. You really do have to almost think about that positioning. New platform, new marketing motion.
Yep.
There's a cost to find out. And you could try to do it on your own, or you could try to do it with someone who's already has some reps in this new game. And I think that's always the trade-off. And it's a tricky thing to articulate because brands are like, what's the ROI? And it's like, we're not at the stage of maturity in this platform where we can pencil in, oh, you're exactly like the 10 other brands we've worked with. And so you're going to get this ROI. By the time we get there, it's going to be, again, inflationary CPCs. You're going to be in a whole different environment. So this is like part of the arbitrage is there's a little bit of tax to find out, but then you're that much further ahead of everyone else once you do learn those lessons.
And you can learn fast in Reddit. Like it is that you get pretty quick feedback on whether your creative's working or not working.
For sure. So you mentioned this a little bit earlier, but like you said, the brands that I tried it 2 years ago and it didn't work. And then you said that a lot has changed with the ad tech. Can you help unpack that a little bit? Like it's been messy historically, but what are you leaning into to help build clean attribution right now?
Over the last couple of years, like they've invested in trying to get better with their bot traffic, and that was always a problem traditionally. So it's better now, but it's still something to take into consideration. But the main thing I'd say that's changed is the conversion API as a tracking signal. So server-side tracking instead of just relying on the pixel. That has been a difference maker in brands who are trying to drive sales. Like if you're not able to see your pipeline and see if it turns into a customer, that's a problem, right? Conversion API has been one of the ad tech over the last 2 years that is almost like a non-starter for me. If your goals aren't just around generating traffic and reach, then you need to have it implemented. So that's been a big one. The other side of it is they actually recently launched their max conversions campaign type, and like I think that not recently, it's more I think is November, December, but they've been running this new campaign type which allows them their actual algorithms to optimize based on conversions. So they have this new tech which is basically their version of Meta's Andromeda or like Google's PMax, where it's like we need to get better at finding customers, mixing better data with that kind of like bidding technology is really where they're going, which they need to. So those are two things I would say.
Awesome. And there's a proliferation of these AI kind of ad generation tech and platforms and for creative reporting. Where do you see, like, where are you leveraging AI as an agency? And where do you see that opportunity with what you're doing on Reddit and other platforms?
Oh, it just superpowers everything we know, everything we're doing. It's like this. So I have a Claude code set up at the agency level, which plugs in directly with Google Ads as an MCP and pulls out in the data. Reddit, we haven't done a direct MCP connection, so we're running the data from our campaigns through Claude and just generating additional insights. Oftentimes, there are things that we as the advertisers know, but it helps us communicate it to our brands. I just find it makes reporting so much more visual and easier that I can generate a very quick visual. Of course, there's the ad execution side, like getting better at creating AI generated creative. That's something that's been coming up a lot in the last year. There's so much to explore there, but yeah, mostly for me, it's been in the analysis and reporting side, helping build strategy, helping kind of take what we're doing as an agency and just kind of amplifying it with AI as a as an amplifier.
Yeah, and that kind of keys into the overall context of this world we're operating with ChatGPT ads. Obviously, this is an emerging platform. Is this the next big thing? Is this the next leap forward, or what's your point of view on ChatGPT ads right now?
So interesting. I am very intrigued. I've started launches of my own campaigns just to put some of our own money into it and figure out where this is going. I think ultimately people's search habits are changing. We've seen that over the last 2 years, and it's going to continue to change, and we don't know exactly how and where it'll be. I couldn't tell you in 2 years from now what it'll be like, but it's accelerating very fast. I think it's super exciting to be some of the early brands in front of this. Their ad tech is going to develop at a much faster pace than Google's did over its 20-year period because they can just copy Google. And I'm pretty sure Google and Gemini they're going to be launching their own ads eventually soon too. It's early days, but brands who are open to testing can get some great early results. So it's a really interesting time.
So when we're talking about ChatGPT ads, I know there's some in the wild spottings, and they've been seeing some stuff pop up on LinkedIn, but what are the ad formats? What does a ChatGPT ad look like for the kind of listeners out there who haven't really seen one in the wild yet or seen anyone?
Yeah. So it is native. It's embedded within the results. It'll have the AI generated result, and then it'll be a natively embedded spot. It'll have a sponsored tag, but it looks pretty natural. It's honestly it's a square banner, very simple. It comes with a title, a description, and a banner. Okay. And it'll show the brand's logo as well. And so you basically have 50 characters to put your offer out there in terms of the title, and then 100 characters to explain your offer and what you're trying to and how you're generating value for that user. And then you can fit it into these certain context windows. So it's super simple in that it's a banner and it's two forms of text right now.
It reminds me of old school Google ads.
Yeah.
It reminds me of that phase. So I know early when they came out, they talked about it was pricing pretty high, $60, $70 CPMs out the gate. Obviously, this is new. Like we talked about, there isn't a whole book that's been written on ChatGPT ads, but in terms of testing budgets for clients that are willing to put a little insurance policy out there, what would you recommend for a testing budget right now for ChatGPT ads?
Yeah, a few $1,000s here or there can go a long way. Small brands could test a couple, just literally $1,000 to $2,000. But coming out the gate, they actually don't have monthly budgets, so you just set a one-time budget. Maybe for example, it's $10,000, which is enough where you get a statistical. So say for example, the cost per click's $2, you get at least 10,000 or XYZ clicks, right? So as long as you have some traffic to see if it's actually working or not, you want to be able to have thousands of clicks to say yes or no. How is this traffic performing? I've seen CPMs. Now, CPMs in the $40 to $60 range is still what I'm seeing for some of these more niche offerings. However, they do have a CPC model now. So I'm running some CPC campaigns where the cost per click is $250, but the CPM is only $18. So it's more in line with what Google and Meta are doing there.
So it sounds like the ChatGPT is going to be super expensive. That's not entirely correct. They're coming down market a little bit in terms of different CPMs and things like that.
Yeah, I think they had those super stringent for their early alpha release. In this beta, they know this isn't going to scale unless people like me and marketers can get some test budget and see if it's working or not. So they definitely brought it down a little bit. Yeah,
and then for kind of a big picture question here related to that is a lot of founders might be I'm going to wait till they figure it out.
Yeah.
So it's messy right now. why now? Why not wait a couple of years and come back and talk to Ben in 2 years?
Because there's opportunity now. The customer who's searching today is not someone you might not get in front of 2 years from now. Yes, you could wait as a brand, but just know that smart marketers are out there today doing it already. So if you're not doing it now, maybe your competitor is, or maybe it's just an untapped market that's really you're not capturing.
There you have it. Your lips to God's ears here. I really appreciate your time, Ben. Thank you so much for joining us. Looking forward to doing more of these in the future. And that's a wrap for us, folks.